Tommy fucking Hoban!
Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. We're joined this week by fellow Blazing Lambs Supporters Club member, Erin Grieve. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. So this week we'll be reviewing last night's victory over Hamilton and taking a look ahead to the big game this weekend against Celtic. We will start in a similar vein to our last show, where we use a one-word summary to look at the 4-2 win. Callum, what was your one-word summary?
I decided on my word last night. It's mayhem, because it's just carnage from absolute start to finish. No one could defend. And then we tried to make substitutions, and we used up all our stoppages. None of it seemed to go to plan from Mr. McInnes. But, we won the game, but the defending was just shambolic. Mayhem is my word.
And Erin, what was your one word?
I think it was mixed.
Mixed, that's a good one.
It was quite hard to think of one word, actually, but we were, first half, amazing. Unbelievable. I thought it was going to be an absolute riot. I was looking at 8-0 and stuff. And then second half was not great. It wasn't bad. It was still fine. And I don't think it was ever going to get worrying. Not as good in the second half, though, at all. And some odd substitutions that I didn't think seemed that sensible. I would have had Ferguson off and probably kept McGeoch on and rested McCrory. But yeah, it was a game of two halves.
Yes, it was indeed, and that some of those points you raised there we will come on to throughout the show. But my word would have been clinical, purely based on the first half. We touched on last episode, Callum, about how we hadn't scored enough goals, and I think, well, you never know. We know Tommy Hoban's a big fan of the show, even though he's not allowed on. Maybe he was listening, and they certainly were in the first half, took all the chances. And, the second half, like you said there, Erin, wasn't great, but ultimately the display in the first kind of 15, 20 minutes proved enough to see the game out. So we came away 4-2 victors, and something to touch on pre-match was the starting 11, both Ross McCrory and Conor McLennan dropping to the bench. Callum, did you think those changes just showed kind of strength and depth? Obviously, Cosgrove and Kennedy also took place on the bench.
Yeah, at the start you thought, that's good. It shows you the rotation that we can use and still have such a strong bench. Kennedy, Cosgrove, Lee didn't even come off the bench. It just shows you the strength and depth they have, which we've not seen really before for such a long time anyway, to have such good strength and depth, have such quality. So it's pleasing, very pleasing.
Yeah, and Erin, something you touched on there was kind of like the resting of players like McGeoch and the substitutions. I thought McGeoch, especially last night, had a very solid performance, and I think he was unlucky to be replaced by Ojo.
Yeah, I think he was good. No issue, I don't think, that meant he should have come off. He was doing fine. And I think, actually, if he wants to put Ojo on, I think Ferguson could have maybe done with a little bit of a rest. I mean, I suppose that's up to him, and maybe he can play 90 minutes every single game, and I think he does play pretty much 90 minutes every game, quite Graham Shinnie style. But I don't think there's any harm when we've got the squad that we've got and we're at home to Hamilton and we're ahead, in having a couple of players who would ordinarily be starting ducking out at 70 minutes. And I was surprised Cosgrove didn't come on.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to touch on. Do you think it, with Sunday's game in mind, Erin, do you think it was strange that both Cosgrove and Greg Lee didn't get minutes?
Yeah, I presume, if you're on the bench, you're fit to play. So, and you can name so many subs now that actually it wouldn't matter if you didn't have certain players on there and if you wanted to have a few less subs for whatever reason. But I presume Cosgrove was on there to give him a run out before Sunday. So it's 75 minutes. I thought surely he'll be coming on. And the same with Greg Lee. You'd think he would maybe get a little bit of time just because of the massive break and things like that. We've not seen Cosgrove play for about 7 months. And I would have expected him to be coming on for a little bit, even just for a bit of a runabout, see how he is up front with whoever he's hopefully going to be up front with, ideally not just on his own, and see how that fitted in. I know we had training and stuff, but I think it would have been handy to have him on. And actually, if he'd come on and managed to sneak a little goal, I think that sets us up quite nicely for Sunday. I presume he's not going to start on Sunday now.
Well, that's going to be a question for the Celtic preview, but Callum, something that we kind of touched on last week, there's no kind of better match fitness than actually playing in the match. Greg Lee was all set to come on, and McInnes, for whatever reason, didn't make the double change at the time, and obviously then he couldn't get on. Do you think, with obviously Hayes picking up a knock, do you think it's surprising that Greg Lee didn't get any minutes?
Well, I thought probably Greg Lee would have come on for Hayes, would have been made a bit of sense, sort of direct replacement playing on the left-hand side. But he seems to keep forgetting that you can only make 3 stoppages, because he did that in a game before, and he even mentioned it in an interview that he forgot that you can make 5 subs, but you can only stop it 3 times. So that's a bit embarrassing, the fact he's done it again. But it would have been nice to see Greg Lee, and I thought Matty Kennedy as well might have been another one that might have got some minutes now that he's back. It's pretty surprising, to be fair.
Yeah, but I suppose we should look at the positives. One thing, obviously, like I said, we touched on, we don't score many goals this season. We turned up 4 yesterday. And the nicest man in football, Tommy Hoban, getting on the score sheet. Callum, I'm sure you want to talk that up.
Yeah, I was absolutely delighted. He ruined my prediction of 1-0 though, so it just shows how much I know. But I'm very glad it was he popped up with a goal, and he was, as you got in the notes, that he was a big threat in sort of the last game as well. Perhaps should have scored against Dundee United, so that's very promising signs. Not only is he Rolls Royce at the back, but he's a big threat in the opposition box as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you, Erin, there. Like, how good is it to kind of have? We said, he touched on he was a threat from set pieces on Saturday at Tannadice, but obviously another solid performance defensively. I know he's not kept a clean sheet, but kind of through no fault of his own. Another excellent performance. It just shows the importance of getting his contract extended.
Yeah, really good. Not at fault for either of those goals. And obviously, I think on Sunday, quite unlucky, in the box at set pieces, obviously looking for opportunities for a goal, a really good goal as well. Similar to kind of Andy Constantine, getting up in the box for a corner, lots of headers, that kind of thing. And as long as you can get back quickly to defend, which he's able to do, I think that's absolutely great.
Yeah, and it's good for him personally. And another person that's impressed so far this season, Lewis Ferguson. Goal of the season contender, Callum?
It's definitely up there so far. It was just sort of liquid football with Ryan Hedges' dummy as well. He absolutely rifled it in the top corner. As Dean Campbell said on Red TV, he thought, he's got plenty of time here, he might take a touch, set himself. No, Lewis Ferguson doesn't play by those rules.
No.
So good.
And the thing is, well, the first thing Dave McDermott decided to say on the goal was that'll certainly add value to his transfer fee. But Erin, I think, given Lewis's performances so far this season, do you feel it's, we should appreciate him whilst he's here? Do you think the club's resolve might even be tested come January?
I don't think. I mean, there will have been interest, I'm sure, in him, but nothing that has been of note that has come out. I think we will probably be pretty strict on what we would accept for him on the basis that he is worth an awful lot of money to us. He is a fantastic player. He's so young. And he's signed till what, 2022?
I think that's right,
yeah. So he has years left. And I think the value we would get from him is really difficult to put an actual number on. So I think you are looking at a lot. And I think that we'd be looking at an English club and the money that they have normally in normal circumstances, so if things kind of go back to normal, is huge. So I think it would be a big figure. And I don't think he would go to Rangers despite what everyone else thinks. I don't really see it. His dad is quite happy with him being Aberdeen and seems to be pretty supportive and positive. And he obviously this season has decided to practice his shooting, because I think we've all seen him line up shots like that and they go flying over the stand. Mm-hmm. But absolutely unbelievable goal.
Yeah, and I think Johnny Hayes' reaction, I don't know if you've seen the clip of him, or the goal, and you see Johnny Hayes in the bottom corners, hands on top of his head, just in utter disbelief. And
I was speechless, and that's very rare.
Yeah, and I think, like you said,
just a little dummy from head, just like they must have practiced that, and it's great to see that like things that we're doing are actually happening in games, because a lot of the time you wonder what we're practicing.
Yeah, well, you just thought after Saturday it wasn't crosses, that's for sure.
Absolutely awful. Corners as well. Hedges' goal, Hoban's goal from Hedges' corner, which was great delivery, as opposed to either swinging it or a short corner.
Yeah, and another player that benefited from the squad rotation, Ryan Edmondson getting his first start and also getting his first senior goal. Callum, good impact from Ryan Edmondson all round.
Definitely, yeah, very happy not only with his goals but his overall play. And for being, I think he's 19, huge physical presence, and he'll only benefit from that start. Hopefully, the injury isn't too bad. I'm not going to touch on that because that would be good for his confidence if he can carry that on. Hopefully, on Sunday, if he's fit, and just score against Celtic would be ideal, really.
Yeah, I think he worked well as part of our front two with Marley Watkins. Erin, would you be happy with him starting on Sunday given his performance last night? Do you think he deserves a start, obviously getting those 2 goals?
Yeah, I think he's quite good. I think we saw a bit of him against Rangers, and he looked like one of our better players. Not a good game at all, but he looked quite sharp. And then obviously he was injured, didn't see much from him, and hadn't really expected him to be back as quickly as this. He is clearly keen to play, get minutes, and scoring goals will have given him some more confidence. We seem to be playing a kind of 3-5-2 at the moment, which I think is going to be good for Cosgrove, and I think is actually probably just going to let us see a lot more attacking football, which is a change from having a really solid defence, but just having nothing going forward and hoping that you don't concede too much, might get a lucky goal. I think he seems like the kind of player who will score 1 or 2 in a game. He was obviously looking for a hat-trick. You could tell he was still up for it. Bit of a maybe niggled, then kind of injured himself going for that ball. But no, I think he's good. I think Marley Watkins goes well in a kind of 2 up front as well.
Just a general question to you both. Callum, feel free to answer first. Given Edmondson getting 2 goals last night, okay, he's picked up a knock. If fit, and if Cosgrove's also fully fit, who would your front 2 be on Sunday?
I've got a feeling he won't go with Cosgrove from the start because he didn't even feature. So I think it will be Edmondson and Watkins. But going forward, I would like to see Cosgrove and Edmondson. And Ed made a good point. I think Cosgrove will benefit from when he does play, having an extra man up alongside him. And a man there, originally I thought I don't want him to come in and ruin the sort of link up between Hedges, Wright and Watkins. But the more I think about it, if he can just sort of be the man there to finish off the moves, then it would be could be perfect. And having a man up supporting with him, whether it's Watkins or Edmondson, could improve him.
Yeah, Erin, what's your thoughts?
I don't think Cosgrove will start, given he didn't come on last night. I think if he'd come on last night, maybe I'd be surprised if he started. He has played against Celtic before, so might, if he did start, I suppose you could see that. But I think there's no harm in having. I think you still have Hedges and Wright, and then you can have 2 of the 3 of Cosgrove, Watkins and Edmondson, and just kind of rotate that round. Okay, you're not going to have someone playing 90 minutes every week, but that's not necessarily the end of the world. You have 3 good strikers who you can have kind of 2 at a time, give them kind of the 70-minute mark, share it round. I don't think that's a bad thing. The issue with that is, where does Curtis Main then fit in? Because I suppose you don't need him then, and because you're not going to have 2 strikers playing half games kind of each. But I think having 2 up front works well, and the Hedges Wright link up is really good, and having 2 people ahead of them is probably going to create more goals.
Yeah, and I think that's something we've touched on throughout the shows, is the link-up play that we are now producing is really enjoyable to watch, and hopefully once we get our 20-goal season striker back into the team, that can only be a positive. Obviously, we've looked at the positives from last night. It's not to say there was negatives. There's obviously some concerns and doubts from the game. One concern was obviously the injury to Johnny Hayes. McInnes didn't kind of appear too confident he'd be fit for Sunday's game. Callum, is that going to be a concern for us if he's out for a long period of time?
A big concern. I think he's looked really, really good down that left-hand side, sort of made that wing-back role his own. And I suppose, do you think, okay, Greg Lee can come in, but at the fact Greg Lee's not played for 9 months or whatever, it's not ideal to chuck him in 2 huge games against Celtic. But I also think McInnes might sort of be saying that. We've seen him do it before where players, we don't know if they'll be fit for the weekend game, then obviously they're in from the start. So I'm hoping it's just that, but, I'm a bit sceptical about it.
Fingers crossed, and obviously we saw Ryan Hedges play left wing back last night when McLennan came on to fill right wing back. But like you said, would have been nice to see Greg Lee get some minutes, but you never know. We'll see if McInnes's poker face rings true. Obviously, we then did go on to concede 2 goals, the first being a very sloppy goal. Ash Taylor didn't really cover himself in glory. I know I like to defend him, but pretty undefendable. Erin, what was your thoughts on the kind of defending for both goals, really? Do you think Constantine was a bit unlucky with a penalty shout?
I think it probably was a penalty. It wasn't as much of a penalty as penalty we didn't get on Saturday. But
the
I think
irony in us conceding a handball penalty.
It's awkward. You have to, like, I mean, sometimes you think that's really ridiculous. Like Ash Taylor, I think it was, conceded one for just having an elbow. I mean, what you meant to do in the box, but I think you need to be a bit more mindful, and I think it was a bit silly. It didn't really create a massive issue. I thought Joe Lewis had actually saved it. I think definitely got a hand to it.
Yeah, I think he does, but it's just an unbelievable penalty, to be honest. It was a fair amount of power behind it.
Yeah, the first goal, I really like Ash Taylor, and I defend him quite a lot as well. I would say that the Twitter review is that he's pretty poor, but I don't think he's bad. He had a good game, I think, on Saturday, and he's had some pretty good spells. You know, he's not the youngest player we've got. He's kind of now playing in the middle of a back three as opposed to kind of usual setup. That goal, they just fell asleep. We'd scored 4 in half an hour. Everyone was having a great time, and actually, I forgot what he was doing.
Yeah, and I think, well, you know, Callum touched on in last week's episode, saying, you know, he's a bit of a no-nonsense defender, but Callum, you have to kind of take a look at the look Tommy Hoban gave him at the goal. It was really a stare of, what are you doing?
Yeah, I don't think Andy Constantine was very happy either. My dad pointed that out too. I've got to think maybe he didn't get a shout. That's the only defence I can really have for him. He didn't get a shout to say man on or just to get rid of it. But hopefully if he gets a mistake out of him now, we won't have one on the weekend. That's my hope.
Yeah, well, he normally turns in a solid performance against Celtic, I find.
He scored, did he not, when we played them? I was going to say months ago, but actually probably the last time we played them, actually.
At Pittodrie,
and he scored a pretty decent goal.
Yeah, good volley that was. The second half, obviously we lost the second 45 with the concession of the penalty. We did change it up a little bit, taking McGeoch off for Ojo, which I kind of think just lost our movement in midfield a lot of the time. Do you think the second half performance gives us cause for concern, you know, that we kind of went into game management mode, or do you think, like Erin's touched on, we were kind of just saving energy ahead of Sunday's game?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time when you see a team sort of blow someone away in the first half, it is sort of a very contrasting second half. Obviously, annoying that we lost the second half, but I think they just took their foot off the gas and sort of had that in mind, sort of that's 3 points in the bag, and maybe lost a bit of concentration. So hopefully we don't go into Sunday with the same sort of idea. But if we could get that's the bad half out of the way, got the bad Ash Taylor's mistake, all that out of the way now, we're ready to come flying out the traps at the weekend and just smash Celtic. That's my hope.
But you're about as confident as Erin normally is on an away day to Celtic.
I am. I don't want to use the confidence for Sunday because part of me thinks we have to play them twice. The chances on paper, and if we look at what Sky Bet are saying, the chances are we'll lose them both. But let's say we're going to win one, I'd rather win the cup. So I'm nervous about Sunday a bit, and I'm kind of getting that. I don't think I'll be as overly confident, because if on Sunday we put in a good performance and it's not a bad game, but we lose, I don't think I'll be devastated, because it's the week after that's, I think, the big one.
Yeah, and that was going to be a question to pose to you both at the end of the show, which one's more important, but we will come to that. Obviously, you know that the result last night takes us above Hibs on goal difference and to within a few points of Celtic, making Sunday's game massively important in terms of the league, but also possibly having a bearing on the week after, like Erin's touched on there. One thing, though, to take from last night into Sunday, and I know we've just briefly touched on it, Callum, there, we've got to defend a lot better than we did last night.
Yeah, 100%. The concentration levels have got to be at high for the whole game. I think last night it was a bit last ditch. You saw that with sort of Constantine scooping one up over the bar as well. It's got to be solid. Build it from the back. sort of give the back three, and I think the wing backs will be vital as well. So obviously I think Celtic have been matching up with that sort of system as well a lot lately, so that'll be interesting battle.
Yeah, and Erin, given how clinical we were in front of goal last night and kind of coupled with Celtic's recent poor performances going forward, do you think we can go into the game with a kind of level of confidence that we can match Celtic for once, or will we kind of see another reserved lineup from McInnes?
What I think and what he might think are probably not the same. But I think if we go there and, well, no, we're at home, aren't we? So if we're at home and we're thinking, normally the kind of plan is to keep it really tight at the back because they score a lot of goals and they're good at that. Keep it really tight, maybe get a goal from a set piece or on the break, and that's okay. But actually, if we can score 4, and okay, Hamilton's defence is not amazing, but if we can score 4 in 20 minutes, you could realistically put a lot more focus on just scoring goals, because as long as you score more than the other team, you're going to win the game. Doesn't matter, your defence is pretty poor. And Celtic have not been great in defence. I think they've looked all over the place. And I don't think they've been that worrying going forward either. I think a back three against Celtic would normally make us a little bit concerned. But if the wing backs stay a bit further back, if it looks as though that's going to be necessary, and if we could get an early goal and another one shortly thereafter, then actually I wouldn't mind if we looked at changing it up and sitting back and putting a bit more into defence to wrap it up, because we scored so many goals so quickly, and there's no reason we can't just do that again. I don't think Celtic defence are better than Hamilton's defence, but they're not that impressive at the moment. Yeah, it's one of the worst Celtic teams we've seen, I think, in a while.
Yeah, definitely. And Callum, Erin makes a good point there about us, hoping to get an early goal. One thing we've discussed many a time is how we make a fast start and get at teams. Do you think on Sunday that's going to be vitally important for us to get on the front foot straight away and don't let Celtic set their stall out?
Yeah, I think for once we are actually genuinely looking good at attacking. As we mentioned earlier, for years it seemed very stale, and I wasn't very confident. But for once, I am actually more confident, perhaps, in going forward than at the back. So I think if we did come flying out the traps, that would be ideal. And obviously, I think it's a very good point about Celtic's team, because they've got Julien, who they paid $7 million for him, and I don't rate him at all. I think he's a bit of a bomb scare. And Welsh played against Rangers as well, and he's obviously a youngster, so we could exploit that too. So if we do get an early goal, I think we might have a chance, and that's not something I've said a lot against Celtic recently.
Check us getting far too confident for a game against Celtic. It's like you said, it's unheard of. But obviously, COVID's affected this season in many ways. Celtic obviously had their cases that affected the game against Rangers. Erin, do you think with the likes of Christie, Edward, Beaton and so on coming back, do you think we'll see a different Celtic team in terms of mentality? Obviously, Griffiths didn't feature. Could he possibly start? And we all know what his finishing ability is like.
Yeah, I think it'll be a different looking team, and I don't think you can, say, oh, but look how bad they were against Rangers, so that's fine, because there's a lot of players missing. Griffiths is a difficult one because he's not a bad player at all, obviously, but other than his clinical finishing, I don't think he actually adds that much. But the concern is that if he gets the ball in front of goal, there is a worry, because I just don't think we'll be able to deal with that. And I don't think many defences or keepers could deal with that. So I think that's concerning. Christie, obviously they've had out, Edward's been out. I think the concern that Celtic might have is what most teams will have, that if you have players out for a considerable period, 2 weeks is actually quite a while, how easily do they just slot back in? It's not, it's not an injury where you kind of manage it and it's dealt with like that. If you're just out for 2 weeks, do you just go straight back in or not? So I'm not sure. And, will they be thinking about the game the following week? And I'm not sure what they'll be looking at. I think their team will be different than it was at the weekend, but I don't know how different it'll be.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a good point you make as well, given that just being out for 2 weeks and with the isolation, how well are they training? Obviously, they can't train with their teammates as well, so it's a good point. But Callum, Celtic play AC Milan on Thursday night in the Europa League. So obviously there possibly a chance to get some of those players in there. Do you think, given their match on Thursday night, could we see a potential European hangover ahead of Sunday's game?
I certainly hope so, but I've thought that so many times. I've gone, all right, that's good. We're playing Rangers at the weekend. They're playing on Thursday, or Celtic at the weekend. They're playing on Thursday, and it never seems to affect them. But I'm hoping maybe now that they've had some players out, and it might be a bit disrupted. Who knows? I'm annoyed that the game isn't in Italy this week. That would have been ideal if they had some more travelling as well. And even still, we thought Motherwell were going to have a bit of a hangover after playing extra time, and they came and blew us out of the water. So I don't think it really has much bearings.
Yeah, I've kind of already tried to put that to the back of my mind. We're really bad at bringing up bad memories on this show.
I think it'll be fine as long as that is the game that is like at the end of the season. That's like, oh god, that's the worst one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know obviously, Callum, it's kind of good you mentioned that in a way. But since that game, we're 4 unbeaten in the league. So, Erin, do you think we can continue building our momentum into this weekend, or are these games kind of a different kettle of fish?
I mean, playing Celtic and Rangers, there's always this whole, oh no, we'll never beat them, we never do. But I mean, sometimes we do. And actually, two proper seasons ago, we had that win against Rangers at Hampden, we had the win at Ibrox, we had the win in the Cup on that Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds bad to say, but Hamilton going to Ibrox, although Hamilton beat them at Ibrox last season. But you think that'll be Rangers 100%. And you look at the odds and it's 1-20 for Rangers to win, and everyone just assumes that's what's going to happen. But I don't think, looking at our team, we are miles off Celtic or Rangers. I don't think Rangers have been absolutely outstanding this season. I think they were quite poor against us on the first day. I mean, we were more poor, but I don't actually think they were absolutely fantastic on Saturday either. I think Celtic just weren't great. So there's no reason why we can't beat every single team in the league, really. I mean, you don't know. Yes, they've got more money, they've got players that cost, like, Julian's £7 million, and that's not a player who you would say is one of their better ones. And we don't have a single player that would cost £7 million and probably won't ever have that. But I think we've got a pretty good side at the moment, and we've got a different looking side than we used to have.
And Callum, obviously Erin touches on their kind of like the mentality. Do you think when we come up against the old firm, do you think that's a mental block for the players, or is it manager? Because the fans genuinely go into these games confident, get behind the team, and we just hit a stumbling block.
Yeah, I think at times, and certainly for a long periods as Aberdeen fans, you do think, what is this about big games? They seem to just bottle it. Sometimes it does just come down to quality, and there is a reason they're paying, obviously, $7 million for Julian. We've been highlighting him. There is a reason they pay $7 million for a player like him. So he's obviously of quality, but I just think some of them are not of. We put them on sort of pedestal because they play for Celtic, they play for Rangers. I don't know whether that gets players at times. It's a mental stumbling block, like you say. But it's weirder things have happened. I can't speak for some reason. It's not gone terribly. Weirder things have happened. You never know. It could happen. And I think I've put it this way: I've got us on to win the league, and I've got us on to win the Scottish Cup. So it might be ambitious, but
the first cup, anyone.
This one we're about to play in. Yeah. And then, if we win that one, then I will be putting us on for the next one just to defend it, see what happens. More just ambitious. Same as when every time I go away, I put on Considine to score just at some point. But,
and
I never know.
I certainly think this season, for these games without fans, they'll have a totally different kind of outlook, because there's not going to be that hostile atmosphere that's created, especially next week at Hampden. But it'll be interesting to see how no fans affects. Obviously, the game against Rangers was a bit of a damp squib, but it'll be interesting to see how that kind of transpires on Sunday. Do you think if Hayes is out, do you think we stick with a back three and slot one of kind of Greg Lee or Ryan Hedges in there, or do you think we'll see a change in formation, Erin?
I think if Hayes is out, then assuming Greg Lee's fine, he must be fine to play. He was on the bench, but assuming he's can at least start and play most of the 90 minutes, I think we just put Greg Lee into there. He was always, I really liked him. I thought he and Max Lowe were quite similar in that they would play quite high up, but had the pace to get back and defend. So I was never too concerned about, that. You see them up in the box and you're playing quite far up the pitch. I think that's fine. So that seems like an easy straight swap. I would like Hedges to stay where he is, and Wright as well. I've always liked Scott Wright, but never thought he was necessarily a footballer, but I think he's been fantastic this season. He has come so good, and it's really nice to see because he's obviously enjoying it, and he and Hedges link up really well. But he had some unlucky injuries and stuff, and otherwise some not great games. So it is really nice to see that kind of pairing in the middle where they're obviously practicing stuff together, and you see some little moves and stuff. I think there was a little back heel at one point and things like that, where they obviously have been training and we're kind of planning things we can do in games around some link up and some different partnerships. So if we can keep it as similar as we have, I think that's probably better. I'm not sure we need to start. The problem when you've got a lot of players is it's tempting, obviously, to play different teams every week. But I think if we just put Greg Lee into there, keep everything the same, and then we've got plenty backup if needed. He needs to come off. We've got Kennedy's back, Cosgrove's back. We've got the biggest and probably the best squad we've had in a long time.
Definitely, and I think we'll see Ross McCrory, and if we do bring Greg Lee in or something like that, keeps McCrory into midfield. Callum, I know you were there desperately away to defend Scott Wright, and it's reminded me, I think I've got to give him a bit of praise last night. His closing down on Dauphin led to the first Ryan Edmondson goal. I think it was maybe his second, but it was a good bit of closing down from him, and hopefully he can continue that. Looking ahead to the weekend, we touched on at the start of our show, we gave a one-word summary on how we felt last night's game went. We're going to do the same feature instead of doing our awful predictions because we've been hopeless so far this season. So Callum, starting with you, give us your one word, how you feel ahead of Sunday's big game.
Confident.
Confident. Erin?
Optimistic.
That's stolen the word right out of my mouth. Does that mean I have to do something different now?
Yeah, now you're on the spot.
I'll say apprehensive then, because it's the hope that kills you. Hopefully we can get the job done, and it'll certainly blow the season wide open and give us a lot of momentum to carry on. But I think that will round things off nicely. Erin, we appreciate you taking the time to join us on this latest episode of Red Tinted Glasses.
Thank you very much for having me.
And nice of you to wear your glasses as well, keeping in with the theme.
It wasn't actually deliberate, but it's worked out nicely, hasn't it?
It has. Callum, thanks very much again for your time. We hope to you all to tune in next week.